Part 3, The Gathering Storm. They drifted for 2 days before washing ashore on a nameless, jungle-choked island. Elira's ribs ached with every breath, and her hands were raw from gripping the splintered driftwood. But she was alive. Jax coughed beside her, half laughing. "You always had a flair for the dramatic." Elira sat up. "I just did what needed to be done." He raised an eyebrow. "So what now, Elira? You burned your crew. You've got no ship. No gold. No name on the sea." She stared out at the waves, lips tightening. "Then we build a name." They spent weeks on the island, salvaging what little they could from the wreckage that washed ashore. Spears from broken masts. Sails repurposed into tents. Food was hard-earned, fish, roots, and the occasional unlucky bird. But they survived. More than that, they planned. Jax knew old pirates, ones who had left the game or been forced out of it. Exiles. Smugglers. Cutthroats with grudges and nothing to lose. Elira listened, learned names, marked islands on weathered maps. She dreamed bigger now, not just of revenge, but of power. Of ruling the waves, not just riding them. They carved a message into the trees on the highest point of the island: crew wanted. Blood and glory promised. Come find us. And to their surprise, people came. The first was a runaway noblewoman named Silent, who arrived in a stolen rowboat with a rapier at her hip and spite in her heart. "I'm done with balls and marriage pacts," she said. "Teach me to be dangerous." Then came Bram, a former naval cannoneer discharged for unethical enthusiasm. He brought fire powder and an obsession with building the perfect ship-mounted flamethrower. More followed. A thief from the island cities. A tattooed mapmaker who had escaped the chains of the Empire. A cook who poisoned his last captain for underpaying him. Within 3 months, they were 20 strong. Elira stood before them beneath the moonlight. "No captain," she said, "will own us again. No empire will tame us. We take what we want, burn what stands in our way, and sail where others fear to drift." They raised fists and mugs, roaring her name. They called themselves the Crimson Blades, after the red band Elira wore on her arm, the only thing from her village she had kept. Their first target was a coastal fort rumored to store imperial gold. It was lightly guarded, nestled into the cliffs. Jax doubted the plan. "We don't even have a proper ship." "We'll steal one," Elira grinned. They struck by nightfall, slipping through the tide caverns and scaling the fortress walls under cover of darkness. Silent danced through guards with grace and cold steel. Bram lit up the inner courtyard with stolen powder. Elira found the commander, fat and drunk in his office, and held a blade to his throat. By dawn, the Crimson Blades had the fort, and the ship docked beneath it. They called her Wave Cutter. Sleek, fast, painted obsidian with crimson sails they stitched themselves. Elira took the helm. Their infamy spread quickly. The Crimson Blades raided coastal towns, struck down merchant fleets, and evaded imperial patrols with uncanny precision. Sailors spoke of the red-sailed terror led by a woman with stormfire in her eyes. Some called her the Crimson Reaper. Others, the Sea Witch. Elira chose her own name, Captain Elira Vane. And the sea whispered it back. But every rise draws the eye of giants. The Empire, tired of losing gold and pride, dispatched Admiral Vorn, a brutal tactician known for hanging pirates with their own rigging. He sailed the dreadnought Iron Wrath, a floating fortress of steel and thunder. Elira's spies warned her. "He's coming for us," Jax said. "What's the move?" "We don't run," Elira answered. "We hit first." She charted a trap, narrow channels near Razor's Reef, where large ships couldn't maneuver without scraping their hulls raw. They lured Iron Wrath there by letting a fleeing Crimson Blades vessel leak false maps. It worked, almost too well. The Iron Wrath arrived in full force, guns loaded. The sea boiled with fire. Elira stood at the helm of Wave Cutter, barking orders, weaving between coral and reef. Bram unleashed his newest invention, barrels of flaming tar that turned the water itself into burning death. Cylon and her sabers tore through the boarding parties. Jax manned the cannons with eerie calm. At the climax, Alira swung from the rigging of a sinking ship onto the Iron Wrath's deck, cut down 2 Marines, and faced Admiral Vorn himself. He was taller, armored, and furious. "You're just a girl," he spat. "I'm a storm," she said, and drove her blade into his chest. The Iron Wrath sank beneath the waves, taking its admiral and a piece of the Empire's pride with it. The crimson blades escaped into the mist, bloody, battered, but victorious. Alira stood on the deck, hair soaked in sea and blood, staring into the wind. "We're not just pirates anymore," she told her crew. "We're legends in the making." Part 4, The Queen Ascends. Months passed. Then a year. The name Alira Vane became as feared as a plague wind. Where once the crimson blades were 20, they were now 100 strong. Not just cutthroats and castaways anymore, but a fleet, a network. 10 ships under her command. Dozens more allied. She built hidden havens on storm-racked islands, armed her people with stolen cannons and fire powder, and sowed chaos across the sea lanes. Her symbol, 2 crimson blades crossed over a black tide, was painted on sails, carved into docks, and whispered in taverns from the shattered coasts of Argent to the blood-salt ports of Var. But something was coming. Something bigger than raids and revenge. It began with a summons. A tattered messenger arrived at her cove, half-drowned and trembling, with a black-marked parchment. A call to parley. A gathering of the pirate lords on Skullwake Isle. Jack spat on the deck. "It's a trap." "It's tradition," Cylon countered. "The old codes. Parley means no blood. If she wants to be more than a terror, she has to answer." Alira said nothing. Just stared at the paper until dawn, then nodded once. "We go." Skullwake was no myth. An ancient, jagged isle crowned with crumbling stone and skull-shaped cliffs, it rose like a fist from the sea. Here, under truce, the great captains met, Black Joran of the Widow's Fong, Red Maw of the Bloodscale Corsairs, Lady Hex of the Eastern Trade Ruin. And now, Alira Vane. They gathered in the torchlit hall carved into the bones of an ancient leviathan, sea wind howling through its broken ribs. Joran leaned forward, gold teeth gleaming. "So this is the little storm that sunk Vorn. You've stirred the waters, girl." Lady Hex narrowed her eyes. "You want a seat at the table?" Alira didn't blink. "I came to break the table." Murmurs rippled. "We are scattered," she continued. "Fighting each other for scraps while the Empire rebuilds its armada. They'll come again, stronger, crueler." She tossed a map on the stone table. Imperial fleet routes. Weak points. Supply caches. We can die alone. Or rule together. Red Maw snorted. "And who sits the throne?" She drew her blade and laid it flat. "I do." Some laughed. Some shouted. Blades were drawn. But Joran stood. "She has vision. Blood. Fire. I saw Vorn's ship sink with my own eyes. I say, we try something new." One by one, the lords bowed their heads, or left in silence. By night's end, a crown was forged, not of gold, but of coral and steel. And it was placed not on a king's brow, but a queen's. Alira Vane became the first pirate queen in known history. She ruled from the sea. Her throne was the wave cutter, now triple-masted and plated with ironwood. She appointed captains she trusted, Cylon, Jax, Bram. Each ship flew her colors and followed her code, no slaves. No terror without cause. No cowards at the helm. The world changed. Merchant fleets hired double escorts. The Empire offered 10,000 gold for her head. And still, her legend grew. They said she could disappear into mist and reappear on the far side of the world. They said her blades burned red with the souls of the drowned. They said she once faced a sea dragon and won. She never confirmed any of it. But she didn't deny it either. One day, standing on the cliff of her hidden fortress, Jax asked her, "Is this what you wanted? Back on that dock, when you looked to the horizon?" Elira smiled, wind catching her crimson cloak. "I wanted freedom. I found power. Now I make sure no one steals either from anyone again." He grinned. Still the girl who set her own ship on fire. She laughed. Still the boy who taught her how to hold a blade. The Crimson Queen sails still, or so the stories say. When the moon is full and the sea is still, sailors claim to see red sails on the edge of the world, and a woman standing at the helm, her blades crossed at her back, her crown glinting with salt and steel. A storm and a legend. A girl and a queen. Elira Vane, pirate, rebel, ruler of the waves. The Crimson Queen of the Sea.